Okay everybody, we got a little upgrade today. So you should see a little difference in the quality, the detail, hopefully. Using a new camera. Top of the line display, top of the line microphone, stereo, this and that. So hey, hopefully we're looking better. And if anybody hasn't subscribed or hasn't given me thumbs ups and stuff like that yet, those are what keeps this channel moving and pays the bills. So it's absolutely free, and thank you. Thanks for the new camera, Rick. So hopefully it's gonna look smoother and feel smoother. We're gonna have better everything, better editing, better sound, and let's jam out a little, okay? Let's have some fun. Today we're gonna talk about vintage hats a little bit. talking part now. Let's turn off the loop. Okay. Alright. I'm going to get comfortable here. You know what? I'm going to sit down a bit. Okay, here's the deal. With vintage hats, okay? First of all, vintage hats shrink a little bit. They tend to be on the tight side a lot of the time. Not always, but a good deal of the time when you buy vintage hats, they're a little bit tight. So if you're counting on buying something a little bit too small, that's the problem. Now, let me just put this on the stand here. Crack the window a little bit so I can get more comfortable. Okay. In the vintage market, like let's say you work at a thrift shop or something like that. The way it works is if you walk in there with like a $300 leather jacket or something like that, and you tell them, all I want is 50 bucks, all I want is 25 bucks, all I want is some credit. Give me $50 worth of credit so I could buy a new shirt for it. No, no, no. They tell you no on everything. They don't want your stuff. They have people they send out, okay? I've known these people. They've got ladies, usually teenage girls, young girls who are into fashion. They want to work at those places, you know, not always. It used to be like this. But the thrift shops have people that they pay to go around the country and basically look at garage sales and find those hats and Levi's and shirts and Hawaiian shirts and all that stuff that they sell, suits, blah, blah, blah. Anything that looks like it's got any kind of value, pair of old sneakers, tie, anything. They pick it up on garage sales, rummage sales, yard sales, things like that, where people are pretty much getting the bottom line. They're not selling it because it's cool or it's hip or anything like that. They're selling it because they need a few bucks, or they're just clearing out their crap or something. So essentially, they'll find the same Kavanaugh hat that, you know, you just bought in Etsy or eBay. But by the way, those are the two sources for pretty much, you know, Etsy and eBay. There's also a classified section for the Fedora Lounge, which is got a new name now, Fedora Enthusiasts or Fedora something else. I forgot what it's called. But if you search under Fedora Lounge forum, you can find it. There's a Facebook group. They have their own Facebook page also besides the group, and they used to have a forum where basically, I'm sure they still have it, in the forum there's a classified section, so people are selling their stuff. You know, you'll pay more there, top dollar. People get their stuff on Etsy and eBay and they get deals and then they flip them. That's basically what they do. So yeah, and they'll find something real cheap. Sometimes not everybody knows what they have, so you find a lot of deals on Etsy and on eBay. That's where you find your deals. But yeah, these guys go around the country and all they do is they look for these super cheap deals, the garage sales. They're buying them for like $2, or they buy a whole carton full of grandpa's old hats. There might be 20, 30, 40 hats just stuck inside each other, covered in dust, so they look horrible to the lady. And the guy will say, I'll give you 20 bucks for the whole box. And they'll be like, can you give me 25? And he'll be like, I'll give you 20. And you know, look, at each one of those hats, they're going to sell for 75, or they're going to stick it on eBay for 125 or 225 or whatever. You know, they just made thousands off that person. But they buy it dead cheap at like $1 or $2 a piece. So they don't even want your hat, no matter what you think your deal is. When you walk in, they're not going to buy your used stuff. They buy it dirt cheap. Now, first thing that happens is the good stuff, when they come back with it, who do you think gets the best stuff? The kid driving the car, okay. She's like, oh my God, I just found a pair of 1970s Lee bell bottoms in pink corduroy. Oh my God, they're in perfect condition. There's 4 of them. Wow, it's the best. You know, and she keeps it. So the stuff that's the best, the people who work at these places keep it. That's what they do. So the really good hats that are 7 3/8 and 7 1/4, they're gone. They disappear. Anything that is of like value, if they have a good amount of them, like real value, they're gonna keep it, or they could flip it on eBay or maybe Etsy, and they're gonna turn some, you know, turn $1 on it, or Fedora allows classified, whatever. What happens is all the good stuff goes, it gets picked through. It's out there. There are rooms full of vintage hats that haven't been opened yet. That, you know, hat shops. People used to have shops, and people have basements full of stuff. There are rooms full of new old stock stuff that hasn't even been worn yet. But people are holding on to them where they haven't been discovered yet. Some of them have been. The thing is, the stuff that's left on the vintage market, they're all 6 and 7/8 and 7s. And that's what you find is like 90% size smalls or size 7, which is basically a small with a little tiny more, but they're all dehydrated anyway, so you got to take off a little bit of a size anyway. So if it's a 7 figure, it feels more like a 6 and 7/8 or a 7 or somewhere in between. So always figure your thing is gonna be a little bit tight. It's gonna be tight. Vintage hats lose a lot of moisture in the sweatband, and that pulls the whole hat in tighter. You can clip the reed a little bit in the back. There are ways to do it without stretching the whole hat. You know, stretching the entire hat is just like messing the whole hat up. It's like the last thing you want to do. Just realize that there's this one ring of wire inside of the sweatband. The end of the sweatband has the reed. I've talked about this before, but I'll show you one more time. When you have a sweatband, the last part of the sweatband, which is this part right here. Okay. See this shiny part on the end? That right there. That's your reed in there, okay? Inside that little tube, this part here, there is a piece of fishing line, okay? And the fishing line gives this, see how it's bouncing back? Always comes back to that kind of oval circle thing, you know, always. Always. Because of the reed. It also gives you pressure. So if I was going to take this and try to pull it over somebody who's 3 or 4 sizes too big, that wire is what's inhibiting them. It's not going to go down far enough because of this one little wire. So in the back, right where the seam is, you can make the smallest cut. And that just cuts the tension. Look at that area there. Look how small it is. Right there. Nobody's going to see that stupid little cut. You make one tiny X-Acto knife cut. Inside there is the fishing line. You get a sharp scissor or something, you get under it, under that line, and you cut it. Okay, then you'll have 2 little pieces sticking out. Just shove them back in. Use the, you know, anything, a needle, the end of a scissor. I use these things, skewers. They're little wooden bamboo sticks. They're about that big, mini skewers that they put yakitori on. You just take the little, actually, you know what would work? A toothpick would probably work. Toothpick, you just use that. They're not as sharp, but it's the same idea. Or anything, you know, the end of a needle, you know, the fat part or something. I've used the a pointy scissor. Just take the skinnier end and just shove that thing in. You just put this, the lines will be sticking out, so you don't want them sticking out of the leather like that, so you get rid of them. And then if you want, you can sew that leather down. I usually leave it. It's usually not a problem, but you can, if you're good with a needle and thread, you could put a silk, you know, 1 stitch there if you want. I've always found it's never really needed. But yeah, all right, let's get back to your vintage hats and stuff. Okay, with your vintage stuff, okay, the vintage stuff is, again, it's gonna run tight. There's a few American brands that are, what's the word? That are sort of like the staples, the classics. Like you're always gonna see them. When you run into them, some of them are the name of hat shops and stuff. You see the same names, like Selco. It's the name of like a clothing store or something. It's like somebody made it for Selco, so it's a Selco hat, you know. like it's like seeing a JJ hat, you know. We didn't actually build the hat here, most likely, although we do that too at JJ Hat Center, you know, one at a time by one guy. But if we have, you know, dozens and dozens of a style, that's custom made to our specs, and they put our lining in, they put our name inside the sweatbands here and stuff, you know. It's like custom made for us, and that's what you see a lot, like a Stetson Selby by Selco, you know. You'll see Knox, K-N-O-X. You're going to see Stetson. You're going to see Dobbs, Fifth Avenue. That's before they were connected to Stetson, which they are now. Stetson and Dobbs are owned by the same people. Different lines from the same people, you know. And you're going to see Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh, A-U-G-H at the end, Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh are famous for having a special edge to the brim. The edge of the brim can be, you know, a raw edge like this. It can be folded under and stitched like a hem, which is called an underwelt. You see that on light felts, or over on top and stitched, an overwelt. It can have ribbon on the end, a bound edge with binding. Could have a raw edge with whip stitch, but the Kavanaughs had something different. They had something that looked like it was folded over and stitched and bonded on, so it's like double thick on the edge, like a little kind of ridge, but it wasn't folded over and stitched. There's no stitching. It's almost like folded over and bonded. Somehow they got the suede to, like, you know, fold under, fold over, and bond, like some sort of machine that, like, just, it looked like, you know, just kind of thicker there. And they call that a Kavanaugh edge. Kavanaugh was the only people who knew how to do it. Although, you know, I've seen them on Borsalinos too, which is a completely, you know, it's a hat made in Europe, so obviously it wasn't, you know, like a trade secret, or the secret got out real quick, you know. I'm sure all you had to do is take the thing apart and figure out how they did it, some kind of bonding machine. But supposedly the machine disappeared, or the people who knew how to do it, you know, died out, and you know, the schematics or whatever are gone, and nobody makes the Cav edge anymore. So finding a Kavanaugh with a Kavanaugh edge is a good thing. It looks like a welted edge. You want me to show you what a welt edge is? Hold on a second, guys. I'll show you one. That's a welted edge. See, it's folded over and stitched. Okay, you see it, right? So it's, you know, you could open the stitching here, in other words. So they take the brim, they fold it, and then they stitch it down. With the Kavanaugh, it's just like this, but there's no stitching. You can't see any stitches there because there is no stitching. It's basically just bonded. And that's really cool. So, you know, if you could find them, I'm not going to say it's super rare or anything, because, you know, they're out there. You know, it's harder sometimes to find desirable color, desirable texture, in good shape, in a good size, you know. But they're out there. My friend Michael Farkas just found a really nice long-haired beaver, which are extremely, you know, a lot of people want them. They just want to rock them. It's not a vintage thing, whatever. They just fly. They're you know, they're badass. A lot of people want them. It's kind of like a cool player look. He got one in like a champagne off-white color, in a 7 3/8, you know, with a nice big brim. Everything cool, you know, cool edge, cool shine to it, soft, beautiful. The stuff is out there. You can pay more for 7 3/8, 7 1/4. Things like that, 7, you know, 1/8, anything that's like that in the middle, 7 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, half, 5/8. As they get bigger, they're very hard to find. You know, they don't have lots of extra large and double X's, but they're out there too, the double and triple X's. They get more expensive. So when things are 6 7/8 and 7, they're cheaper. They're like, wow, I found this Porcellino. It's a, you know, it's a crushable one from the 1930s. It's perfect condition. It's done. but it's a size 7. Yeah, they're all out there in 7s, in 6 and 7 8s. Nobody can wear them. They're pretty much useless. So yeah, you saw that, and it was cheap, it was affordable, whatever. But if it was a normal size, it wouldn't be like 45 or 50 bucks, or, you know, 30 bucks. It would be 300 or 400, you know, because people know what they got. So you can get those deals, $40 for 7 3/8 hats, but you gotta be on it. You gotta look at the thrift shops. Look yourself. You gotta be like one of those people who they send out in the cars to go into, you know, go to yard sales, garage sales, all that stuff. You see them on Craigslist in your area. Those are all legit, you know. Buy them up. That's how you find them. Etsy, eBay, but don't pay a bundle. Don't start paying hundreds, 200, 300, because they're out there cheap, like really cheap. And you keep looking, you're gonna realize you could get them like, you know, at the Salvation Army down the block. They'll have a pile of like 30 of them, and there'll be 1 or 2 or 3 that will fit you and that are amazing, you know, and they might be dirt cheap, you know, maybe that's the same, you know, Italian silk comfort, but it's like $16 or something like that, or, you know, $8. So, you know, look around, the stuff's out there. So we said Knox, so we said Dobbs, Fifth Avenue, we said Stetson, Kavanaugh, another company called Adams Hats, very popular. There's a hat company called Disney Hats, really nice. They have nice boxes too. All the old boxes are nice. They're worth something too. And it's cooler if you can get a hat with the original box and it's a colorful box. One thing to look for are old Stratoliner boxes. They came in these silver kind of bullet-shaped boxes. It was like a trapezoid, sort of an oval, like an oval shape. Sort of football, but more of a trapezoid, kind of. But silver with a light blue, like Art Deco, you know, jets on it and stuff, airplanes. Because it's a jet age thing, you know, like kind of like, you know, space age, but it's jet age. So it's cool. It's really nice. And the silver boxes and the different shaped ones. There's old Porcellino boxes that look like Coliseums. You know, they reissued those in the 90s and in the 2000s too. So you know, they're out there. They shouldn't be expensive. They look like the Roman Colosseum. Those are pretty nice. All sorts of nice boxes. A lot of them have, you know, complete color pictures, not like 1 or 2 or 3 colors. There's like all color, like a painting or a photograph, you know, like you see people doing stuff, or different cities. There's a Stetson one that's got like San Francisco, and then New York, and Rome, and Paris. As you know, you spin it around, they've got beautiful color pictures of all the different cities in the world. Awesome. And the boxes are like cooler than the hats, kind of, you know, and they're collectible. Here's another thing about the vintage hats. I told you, you know, go large, don't go small, because they tend to be a little bit shrunken or a lot shrunken. Sometimes not, but most likely it's going to be a little bit on the small side. That's more typical. Something will be a tiny bit tight. Pick up the sweatbands. Okay, look for information. Okay, inside here, on the inside of the sweatband, you're going to see tags. You're going to see the name of the shop. You're also going to see the price. They've got the price in there, which is, you know, some clues and stuff. So, like, if your hat is, you know, like it says Beaver and it's $12.50, it's different from a hat that's, you know, $60 or something, you know, or you can kind of date things like that. You could date things by shops. If you see a particular shop in Montreal or Louisiana or wherever it is, you know, or Mexico, and that shop was only open from 1923 to 1937, so, you know, you kind of dated your hat already there. So look underneath there for tags, okay, inside the leather there, okay. Also, look further, okay, flip it open. This does not hurt the hat, don't be a wuss, okay. If your leather band feels crunchy and flaky, like there's little pieces of leather crunching off, then don't do it, otherwise it's fine. Flip it up, okay, and then look inside here, okay, peel the lining back a little. Okay, inside here's the lining, just kind of push it back just a little bit, and you're gonna see there's other tags stuck in there under the lining. Sometimes they have the name of the model, the price, the color, the information, everything you need so you could reorder the hat. There's a side of a ticket for you, perforated. You can pull it out. Like there's a side for the stock, you know, for them to fill in their stock, to put on a little needle when they sell it. And there's one for you when you want to reorder. So look inside there and don't stop at the leather. Go under the lining and look in there. You're going to find backup tags, and there's information that you can always Google. Nowadays, all that stuff's in there because people have sold all these hats. You see something called a Stetson Roundup. You're like, what the heck is that? It's a Roundup, you know? You Google it, Stetson Roundup, eBay, you know, sold for this and that, and then you'll see a few in Google image, and you get clues, and you start to figure out, you know, the year of things, what they're made of, a little bit of history and stuff. So, that's another thing. Look under, you know, look for clues in there. Peel back the leather and stuff. Don't go tight. Definitely don't, because these hats will run tight, and sometimes the leathers are dry and they cannot take a stretch. That will not work. Don't recommend stretching at all. I recommend going bigger and padding. It's non-invasive. You just pad it. That's just the way to do it. And yeah, got the new iPad set up. You want to go say hi? You can say hi. It's okay.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone.
The new rig.
Here's the new camera.
Yeah.
Oops.
Don't cover up the camera. Hey, you need to get fingerprints on it. Don't do that, knucklehead. I'm gonna get you. All right, I gotta finish my hat lecture now, I guess.
Yeah.
Were you like looking at yourself in the mirror? Hey,
Yeah.
you look handsome, right?
No, I'm ugly. I'm as ugly as the turd.
Okay, don't throw the laundry at them. Don't say dirty words on the hat lecture. All right. What was I was talking about vintage hats.
Yeah, so...
Can you,
what year was the vintage hats made?
Vintage hats? Vintage hats are generally older, like 1970s, 1960s, or older.
Why is it...
If it's 80s or 90s...
That's not that old.
Yeah, I was working in the 90s. I don't consider those hats vintage, you know?
And I want you to sing them out with a special stew-up song.
No. I'm not ready to sing them out. I have to do more hat lecture. So let me finish up, and I promise I'll play with you after this video, okay?
And
here's to the new
camera. When you play them out, make sure to sing them a special song.
All right, I'll try. I know what song you want me to sing.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you get the door on the way out? Thanks. I knew he was good at photo bomb. I just knew it. Good thing. It's the new camera. Deserves to photo bomb. Let me show Wes's picture there. There we go. That's a nice scene. I should have set it up like that without the tape from the beginning. All right. Got a new camera, baby. How does it sound? Sound good? Microphone a little bit richer. Are we experiencing more richness and seeing more of Kevin's flaws in his face and stuff because of the high definition? Do I sound bassy and rich and really having a lot of radio presence, like I'm deep voiced like one of those radio dudes? I hope so. Actually, when I listen to my voice on a good microphone, it sounds really deep and bassy. It has a good timbre to it, a good timbre. So we're getting back to vintage hats. All right. Yeah, so the American hats are the really good ones. You know, they're cool. It's a bit of nostalgia. Things to look for: back bows, awesome. Back bows you see a lot in pork pies. It's a jazzy kind of a cool cat thing. So a back bow is basically when you don't have this bow here on the left side, okay? Generally a man wears this on the left. A gal wears it on the right. So if your brother is saying, hey man, that hat you bought me, that salmon colored hat, that's a girl's hat, dude. I don't know. You know what you tell him? You say, yo, watch this. And you cue up 3315 Kevin's video where he says, guys' hats always have the left side bow. Girls' hats have it on the right side. That's how you can tell if a salesman is giving the old BS. It's not unusual for us to have ladies' hats on a big hat tree when you walk into JJ Hat Center, okay? What happens is, many times guys will walk in, they'll stumble in, we'll all be helping people, and they'll take one off, and it'll have a cool color. It'll be burgundy or green, the ladies' hat. They'll stick it on their head, you know, and they'll be like, and you're kind of thinking like, okay, this guy's got a gal's hat on. How can he tell? They don't know. Nobody knows. Come on, you know. Most of the times, you know, fedora for lady, fedora for men. The only difference is generally is they make the ladies ones in more funky colors, and they trim them with like really like, you know, dumb stuff like flowers and whatever. Flowers and lots of feathers and too much schmaltz and stuff. So guys' hats, they tend to keep them more simple, but the shapes, you know, you can see are the same. The girls' hats are going to be on the right. So this is the way you determine it. If a lady's hat has it on the left side, what they're trying to do is keep it unisex, because a lot of times certain cities, you know, guys are a little bit more open-minded, girls are more open-minded, they buy each other's stuff. So as long as you keep it ambiguous, so you don't know what it is. Anybody will buy it, you get twice the customers. But that's the real way to tell if it's a gal's hat. Yeah, right side for gals, left side for dudes. Okay. What else can I say? You've also got European hats for vintage. There's Barbizio, there's Celentino. Barbizio is from Italy. They're like, you know, similar to Borsalino, but they're like, you know, not like down here, but they're like, you know, trailing behind it in quality, but not far behind. But they're like, yeah, you know, kind of like they're an Audi or like, you know, one of those really nice European cars, but they're not like a Porsche, you know what I mean? They're really good. They're like that. And there's Porcellino, which is going to be the highest priced stuff. They had very different series. They had a lot of different series to their hats. The really good stuff is going to be called Quality Superior. It's going to say it on the lining inside here. Okay. Now, linings can be changed easily, but you don't see a lot of that. People don't know. You know, they're afraid of breaking stuff. They don't do it. But it'll say smallest print at the highest place. So in other words, you're seeing the lining over here. You look at the top, Quality Superior. So that's the good stuff. That's like the $300 stuff, 400, whatever. They did have one hat. Hold on a second. They did have one hat called the Beaver, which was like $500-600. The Beaver. It just says Beaver. Those are nice too. Same quality. But then they have something called the Rainproof line, which was travel hats mostly. It's about a $100 less. Rainproof line is good, but it's not the same stuff. The felt is a little bit lower, and what they did is they put the word Rainproof line on it to make it seem even better, because the marketing was really good. The Rainproof line, wow. That's the only one that says Rainproof. We got to get that one. And it's even cheaper. It's $50 cheaper than Quality Superior. People don't know, you know. So they make it, you know, it's Rainproof line means nothing. It only means it's their second series down. Quality Superior, Rainproof line. Below that, they had something called the Handmade series, which was very similar. I don't know what the deal with that was. It was, you know, they had Linea Donna, which is ladies' hats, ladies' line. They had the Triunfo series and the Augusta series, which are basically when you want to save money. Seen mostly with religious hats. They're stiffer and they're cheaper. So instead of being a $350 hat or $375, they're more like a $225 or $200 hat, $175, way cheaper. They look the same. Same, very, very similar. Everything you can order, like a Como and both, you know, qualities, the really, really good ones, and they'll be $350 hats. Or you could order the same hat in a Triunfo series and they'll be like a $175 hat. When it's used, it's not worth that much, you know, $80. So knowing your series means a lot with those hats. People don't always have a really expensive, really great hat because it says the word Porcellino on it. They did have cheap stuff too. So if you see Triunfo or Augusta, it's not going to be rollable, crushable. It's going to be stiffer and it's cheaper. The quality is not that great. Quality superior is going to be better. Their stuff runs an entire size tighter, just like JJ custom hats from Spain, like the Madrid, the Seville, all those hats, the Cyrus. European hats tend to do that. They run one size. So if you're a 57, you need to get a 58. I believe Orbisio ran that way too, but Celentino, which comes from the Czech Republic, they run big, one size big sometimes, so most of the time. They're a great brand too. You're going to see a lot of exotic stuff from them. You're going to see exotic things from Biltmore. Biltmore had a lot of nice beavers called Grand Beaver, Royal Beaver, Grand Beaver. They had something called Peluche, which was a shiny silk beaver. And most of those were from the 90s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, low 2000s. You know, not really vintage, but it's a period when Biltmore was from Brooklyn, not Brooklyn, Biltmore was from Guelph, Ontario, actually, from Canada. And when they were in Canada, they made very nice custom hats. They were basically the Rocher that we used to use back in the 90s. Now we go with Rocher, it's a little bit classier brand. After Biltmore, we switched to Borsa. After Borsalino had their bankruptcy and started, you know, kind of petering out on quality, we switched to Rocher, and we've been pretty happy with them for the time being. Actually, we did try Signet for a little while. We did a few hats from them, liked it, but just didn't continue with them. I really like them. But you're going to see European hats too. There's lots of brands, lots of them. There's stuff from England, Lock & Co. The older stuff is good from them. It's incredible. Some of the newer stuff is just the name. You know, they have other people make them too, like Christies of London, Lock. Who's the other one? Somebody's name, I forgot. Something. There's three really big British names out there: Christies, Lock, and I forgot the other guy, Henry something, whatever. And they are expensive, but some of the newer stuff, you might go to like a hat shop like Paul Stewart or a men's shop or something, and they'll have lines that are classy like that, but made by other American companies in Spain, this and that. So sometimes the names are tossed around, and when you're buying older Lock stuff, it's legit. Some of the newer stuff, just be careful what you're buying and stuff. You know, if you're going straight to Lock of London's shop in England, obviously you know it's legit. A lot of them tend to be very thin, very light, you know, like travel hats, lighter than Borsa, a little light for my tastes. Herbert Johnson, that's the name I was looking for, Herbert Johnson. Anyway, what was I getting at? Yeah, they can be really light, but the Christies of London bowler is what they're really famous for. They make a hard bowler. It has like a red silk lining, kind of looks like a red coffin on the inside, and it's really nice. Everything about the bowler is completely different and nicer than, you know, it's like the same bowler in the poster by, what's his name? The famous Apple guy. It's really, really, you know, like royal family bowler stuff. They're hard. They use them for racing, not racing, horse, English, British horse riding. So that branches and stuff don't hit you in the head when you're riding through the, you know, hunting and stuff. But they're very hard, so they don't flex. So you really have to get those sized well. And they run a little funny, Christies bowlers. I forgot how they run. It could be a little bit large, but they do run one size kind of off. So you gotta be careful when you're buying those. But the Christies bowler is something really nice to look for, vintage. Christies of London. They come in red cylindrical boxes usually. Also really nice things to look for are the top hats. You have the collapsible silk opera hats, the ones that flatten into like a little disc kind of. You can flatten them on your chest. Don't use your hands to do it. Flatten it against your chest. Flip it open like that. Those are nice. They're generally made by one guy out in Long Island. Kruger top hats, also called Top Hats of America. But you can find silk opera hats, collapsible and non-collapsible, and then more typically you find beaver top hats, or, you know, like hairy ones and stuff, furry, you know, old toppers. You find, you know, 1800s, turn of the century. Some of them are a little worn, you know, like patches of the hairy beaver, the shiny stuff kind of missing. It looks kind of like, you know, just like the shininess is gone in certain areas, like worn. But you see a lot of those. They're not hard to get because like everybody had them. There was, you know, there's hundreds of them laying out there. Those are nice to get though. They're really cool. I've even seen some of the pilgrim ones that are, you know, not like stovepipey or hourglass. They're kind of like that. You ever seen those? Like a black kind of pilgrim shaped ones. Those are old. Those are some old stuff. Some of them are faux. They're fake. They're costumes, and they were used for movies or like plays for the theater and stuff. They have that stuff out there too. So be careful, you know. And that can be old too, but just not, you know. They could be doing some Shakespeare play in 1910, you know, and it's supposed to look like it's from the 1600s or something, you know. So you never know. It could also be from the 1960s or the 1980s or 90s. So there's costume stuff out there too, for theater. Vintage. Be careful of vintage. Moth holes is one thing you want to be careful of. If you do see moth holes, get it in an inconspicuous place, not here, between the eyes. Get it, you know, in the back, underneath, and nobody will ever see it. I would be careful getting that stuff. You could be inviting moths into your house. You know, they could be like in there, some eggy kind of stuff. So that, you know, yeah. Try to get stuff that looks new if you can. There are new vintage hats out there called new old stock. So if you see NOS or new old stock, jump on that stuff. Look at that Fedora Lounge Classified. There's some really good hat nerds out there. A lot of them are a little bit pretentious and, you know, snooty, and they want to show you how much they know about this and that and stuff. But it's a good source, you know, it's a source. Don't pay a lot, you know. You're better off going to Etsy and waiting, and just wait. You make yourself a search and you check it every day with a bookmark, or, you know, in your reading list, so you could hit it with one, you know, like most recent. So, you know, you see the last 20 or 30 people who posted for your hat that you're looking for. You know, so you just do a search. That's how I find guitars. You check every day. Get yourself a bookmark and you check it. Keep coming back, and eventually you'll find one that you just gotta pull the trigger on. You'll find that, like, you know, perfect size, perfect brim, the texture you want, the brand you want, and it's there, but they disappear fast, you know. Go large, like I said, don't go small. Going the same size most likely is gonna feel a little bit small, but, you know, you can deal with it. Just don't go a size too tight unless you don't plan on wearing it. It's, you know, if you got it here for something else, that's fine, but if you really want to wear this thing, don't go a size tight, just wear, wait, you know, or get something that's vintage style, like a Stetson Saxon or something, you know, because that's also cool too, and it's brand new, and there is a beauty of having a brand new, you know, when something is brand new right out of the box, it's gorgeous, you know, it has a smell to it and a feel and a freshness. And you know you're the one who's making that thing dirty. Nobody else did, you know. So every little speck that's on there is from you. But anyway, vintage hats are not really my thing. I have a lot of hats from when I first started working at JJ's, which is 94. I actually bought a lot of my hats in 94, 95, 96, 97, 98. The first 5-6 years I was really hat crazy. I was spending my paycheck on hats. I was owing money for hats, you know, I was paying them off. I was getting one free hat in the winter, one free hat in the summer for working for full-time at JJ's. So 25 years, that's 50 free hats just for the season hats, plus the ones I bought, you know, it must be another 50 there. And a lot of the sales reps used to give us free hats too, you know, just as gifts, you know. And yeah, there were so many. But the ones that I liked the most were some of my first ones, and they managed to stay really well because I liked them. Not all of them were my first ones, but a lot of them are, you know, like at least 15, 20 years old and stuff, you know. I like that a lot. So, vintage, kind of, you know. But I don't really do the vintage thing myself. If I saw the right hat and it was new old stock, totally new, I'd be okay with that. Here's one way to tell if a hat has ever been tried on. This is a trick too, okay. You know the inside of your hat, there's this thing, right? The bow. Okay, a lot of the times that bow is white. Like a good amount of the time, it's a white bow, like that, okay? Right in the middle here, the center part of the bow, if you wear your hat even once, that bow gets dirty. You know, like you could wash your hair in the morning and you're like, yo, I washed my hair, it's totally clean. It's like the absolute cleanest. You put that thing on, and when you take it off, that middle thing a lot of the time still gets dirty. It could be from the city smog, it could be from, I don't know, just, you know, oils or perspiration or whatever. But when you see that middle thing is clean, that hat is like virgin. It just came out of the box, or it lived in this box its whole life. If the middle thing is dirty, it could mean somebody tried it on one time at the shop, you know. It doesn't mean it's used, but it means it was tried on. So it doesn't really tell you if a hat is used, but it does tell you if it's never been tried on. If you see that middle piece is really clean, it's a very good chance it hasn't been tried on at all, because I've seen that, like when my hair is like dead clean, you know, just took one of those crazy double shampoos, and, you know, and then, you know, wake up in the morning, put the hat on, bam, it still comes off the middle, gets like a little gray color. So it's a good trick, you know. If you see that, you're like, whoa, this hat is fresh. Look at that, you know, look at the little bow there. Can't think of much else to say. You know, look for those back bows, they're really cool. Look for stingy brims. Stingy brims are hard to find. That's like a 1-inch brim or a 1.5-inch brim, which you just can't get now. Look for those. Look for Kavanaugh edges. Beavers are nice, if you could find some beavers in cool colors. In the 70s, they even had them with swirls on them and stuff. See what you could find. You know, it depends what your taste is, too. How's it look? It's good quality, right? Let me know, guys.